Are you like this guy and you don't know what a Roth IRA is or what to even invest in? I'm going to tell you what a Roth IRA is, break it down, what the best investments might be for a Roth IRA holder, and just walk you through what I'm doing with my Roth IRA. So stick around for that. Now, most of you have heard of a Roth IRA, and just like this guy, he's 19 years old, wants to start his career soon, and wants to know what to invest in. But they don't really know what a Roth IRA is or how much they should invest in. Maybe they have about $100 to $500 per week to throw into investing. And a lot of people, they have the money to invest. They just don't know what to do or the best efficient way to put their money to grow in the markets for retirement. So by the book, a Roth IRA is a type of tax advantage individual retirement account to which you can contribute after tax dollars. That sounds like mumbo jumbo, but let me break that down. So essentially, when you work, you have this thing called taxes that you have to pay. They get withheld from your W-2 or your paychecks. So ideally, you would be getting taxes pulled out. You're going to be paying taxes on the dollars that get paid to you through this paycheck. Now, whatever's left after taxes, Social Security, disability payments, all of that, that's your after tax income. So that's attributing to this factor right here, this after-tax dollars. Now, when you put your after-tax dollars into something called a Roth IRA, your money is then able to grow tax-free. So you can put your money into any stocks, index funds, mutual funds, probably some crypto ETFs in general, anything you'd want to, pretty much out there. And this money is going to go tax-free because one day when you make money, what does the government love doing? They love taking your money in the form of a tax or taxes. So this is one way to mitigate that tax stealing that the government will do for you. But this is the best way, in my opinion, to get money to grow at the best pace possible. Okay, but before we get into a Roth IRA and what you can invest into, let's make sure you're even eligible to have a Roth IRA in the first place. So if you are a single individual and you don't have any dependents under your taxes, then you just need to make less than $150,000 per year. Then if you make under $150,000, you're able to contribute the maximum of $7,000 every single year. Now, if you make anywhere between 150 to 165, the government is going to look at your income and see like what percentage of this 7,000 can you really put into there. And they're going to limit you based off that. And if you make above $165,000, this is going to be a non-eligible term here. You're not going to be able to put any money into a Roth IRA in general. There's this thing called a backdoor Roth IRA, but that requires an entire new video and it's a workaround behind all of these contribution limits and income limits. Of course, similarly, like married filing jointly in your returns, you just got to make less than $236,000 on a combined basis, and that's $7,000 that you can contribute every single year. Anywhere between 236 to 246, that's going to be a partial contribution, and anything above 246 is a non-eligible contribution. Now, all of these contribution limits are if you are under the age of 50 years old. However, there's a different rule for when you're above the age of 50. So you can see on this right side that the contribution limit then bumps up from $7,000 to $8,000. So you actually get $1,000 more. This is essentially so you're kind of like catching up and getting more money into the markets at a later age, which is going to be really powerful if you are above age 50. And remember, if you or your spouse is going to be a high earner pushing you out of these contribution limits, then make sure that you look into a backdoor Roth IRA. It's going to be so powerful. It requires another video, like I said. But what makes somebody eligible in the first place to have a Roth IRA? You have to have a W-2 income. That's you just going out and working in the workforce, and your contributions can't exceed your earnings. So if I make $5,000 every single year working a part-time student job, the most I can contribute every single year is that $5,000. I cannot put more than $5,000 into there, or you'll get in trouble with the IRS and it's not very good. Now, what makes this account so strong in your early 20s is that you're going to be building this compounding machine, this snowball that's going to just roll into bigger and bigger numbers at the end of the day. Let's roll through this compound interest calculator. And if you don't know, like Albert Einstein says, compound interest is the fifth wonder of the world, something like that. But if you put $7,000 into here, the yearly contribution maximum, then you will be saving for the next 30 years, let's say. Or if you're that 19-year-old, you're going to be saving for the next 40 years. But let's run through 30 years if you're later in the game. An average return for the market, if you put it into like anything that tracks the US stock market, that's going to get you anywhere between 8 to 12%. Let's take the average of that, 10%. And every single year, we're going to put $7,000. The government might give you different numbers that you could contribute later on down the road. And this $7,000 per year is not going to go down, but it can only go up for contributions that the government will allow us to put in. So, but let's go on the very conservative side and just, $7,000 per year is all you can put in every single year. We're going to compound this every single year, calculate this. At the end of your retirement, you are going to have a tax-free $1.27 million. And a lot of you might be thinking, oh, $1 million that old is going to do nothing. Let me tell you this. A tax-free $1.2 million will do you a lot. And would you rather have $1 million or not $1 million at all, and things that have depreciated in value because you went and bought them, like nice clothes or like designer bags? Okay, designer bags are the one thing that if you get like on a nice basis, it could appreciate. But I'm saying majority of things that we buy just go to zero. They depreciate to zero. They're worth nothing at the end of the day. By the end of this 30 years, you're going to have $1.2 million, and that is nothing to sneeze at there. Of this 1.2, you will be making $1 million, but you would only put in $217,000. That is almost like 5xing your money in the span of this time, which is remarkable. Like, where are you going to get this kind of return in your lifetime? It's most definitely the route to take if you want to reduce your taxable liability later on in life. Because if you put all this into a regular brokerage account, buy stocks, you're going to have to pay taxes. And we don't want to pay taxes on that because you're paying taxes on taxes and taxes, and it's going to blow up. But let me show you just how powerful it is if you are starting early. Like, you're 19 years old, you're starting early, you got another 40 years in you. You will have $3.4 million if you stay the course. It's remarkable. $3.4 million. People don't even make that in their lifetimes just working a W-2 job. Your income needs to be an insane hourly rate for you to save all of this money after taxes, because you're not going to be able to do that unless you have an insane income or you start a business. And those are the really two ways that you can get this kind of money just by earning it. But you got to save and invest. That compounding works wonders. You can see in the last couple of years, it actually just goes from like the last 4 years, it essentially doubles from 1.5 all the way to $3 million. So stay the course. The compounding happens way later, but over time, you will come out on top and you will be the millionaire in Roth dollars. Now, it's important to note that your contributions, that money that you put into there every single year, can be pulled out at any time in your life. You could pull that out when you want to buy a car, a house, anything that you'd really want. You could pull it out. No penalty at all. However, the earnings must stay into there. Like, if you have $7,000 into there, but it grows to $10,000, that $3,000 of extra earnings needs to stay in there until 59 and a half years old, or you will have some penalties. Overall, it's fine. You're not going to use this money till later on anyways. Don't even worry about pulling it out unless you really need a down payment for a house. Other than that, your investments should stay investments. There is also an exception that if you are a first-time home buyer, if you're making that first-time purchase, you can pull out $10,000. And that's going to be the money that you could put towards a down payment. And all of this money will be okay for you to turn out penalty free, which is just another perk of this account. Now, here is exactly what I'm doing with my own Roth IRA, and critique it if you want, but this is exactly what I'm doing. So in my Roth IRA, I hold about 5 stocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these all equate to about $56,000. Of the $56,000, I put in about $41,000, having about $15,000 of gains at a 37% return so far. And really, you should be buying like things that track the overall market, like the S&P 500 or the total stock market. But I already have those funds in another account, like a 401k. So I am using this account to buy shares of companies that I think are going to do well over the long term. And if I can get a good return, hopefully similar to how I've been performing in the past year or so, then this money will be tax free later on, and I could buy and sell and keep all these positions in here and don't have to worry about taxes at all. So this is one of the strategies that I'm using as a stock picker that picks my own stocks to put in a portfolio. Of course, put the things that you are comfortable with in your Roth IRA. If you want real estate, buy real estate investment trusts. If you want an ETF, buy VOO or VTI that's going to track the US stock market or the total stock market overall. And buy these Bitcoin ETFs if you want Bitcoin later on in your portfolio. That's the way to go because you're going to have no taxes on all of this stuff. But I've been slowly putting money into here ever since I was maybe 19 years old, and now I'm 24. Though my returns aren't the best, this is something that is growing. You know, if I never put money into this account overall, I wouldn't have these gains. I wouldn't have 15,000 extra dollars that I could have towards my retirement. I mean, all of it is paper wins or paper gains anyways. But overall, you wouldn't even have this opportunity to have a return that is going to be tax free. So with all said and done, make sure that you are putting money into your Roth IRA, because imagine if you didn't have the tax-free money later on. Now, when it comes to choosing stocks or ETFs to put into your portfolio, most people should probably go with just VOO, which is Vanguard's S&P 500 ETF, or VTI, which is just Vanguard's total stock market ETF. Now, the only differences between these two ETFs are going to be what they are comprised of or what makes up of them. So there's going to be different sectors of every single stock in the stock market, and they're going to choose different stocks that go into there. So this S&P 500 is going to be the top 500 companies in the world based off how well they perform and certain amount of conditions that go into there. There's going to be different sectors, different benchmarks, and different weightings that they're going to have. So each of these is going to have a breakdown. So there's going to be a lot of holdings that they're going to have, and each holding has a different weighting or how much of the fund it takes up. So Nvidia, like, you know, the company that makes the graphic card chips or data center chips, they are going to be 8% of the fund. So if I put $100 in to VOO, $8 will go into Nvidia stock. If I buy this VOO, and I'm going to buy it with certainty that this $7.37 is going to go into Microsoft. So overall, you get to see the breakdown, and a lot of it is driven by big tech, number one at 34%, and then financials companies and consumer discretionaries. That's usually about 50 to 60% of the entire weighting of the S&P 500. Now in VTI, the same thing, only different. This is going to be made up of 37% technology, industrials 12%, financials 11%, consumer discretionary 14%, but you're going to have different holdings here. You know how earlier Nvidia was at 8%, now you're looking at 6%, and Microsoft, this weighting is going to be 6%. And you're going to have more companies in here. You're just seeing the top right now, but you're going to have a lot of companies that aren't in the S&P 500 that are going to be in here, because this takes into account everything from smaller companies to middle-sized companies to larger companies. But in the S&P 500, it's usually only the top biggest 500 companies in the US. A lot of people debate which one should I do, VOO or VTI. The right answer, I couldn't tell you. It's probably both. If you have an allocation to one and the other, overall, their performance isn't going to be too far off from each other, and you'll do just fine holding one or the other or both. But you're probably wondering, how do I even open up a Roth IRA in general? Well, for starters, there's one really good bank called Fidelity. They're like the creme de la creme of brokerage accounts. Either Fidelity, Schwab, some people like Robinhood, some people like M1 Finance, but you can't go wrong with any of the big banks. And just gonna go and type in Roth IRA, and you're going to come to Fidelity's website, let's say, for example, here, and you're going to type open a Roth IRA, get started. And it takes just a few clicks. It's not that difficult, and you'll be able to just turn your money that's sitting in your bank account into investing money overall. Now, some of the common mistakes that you really want to avoid is thinking that, oh, just because I put money into a Roth IRA means that it's going to be invested. Remember, the Roth IRA is like a wallet. And like a wallet, the money isn't spent. It's just being held into there. But overall, you want to make sure that even though it's sitting in the Roth IRA, you're choosing specific investments to put that money into, and use that as your own discretion to put it into whatever you want. But overall, the S&P 500 or the total stock market is going to do just fine. Make sure that you're contributing only when you have earned income, and make sure that you're not pulling contributions out too early as well. Remember that 59.5-year mark. And lastly, make sure that you're just starting. A lot of people think $7,000 isn't enough. What is that going to do for me? But we saw the compounding earlier. You can have as much as $3 million in a portfolio later on. So don't sneeze at it. Make sure that you're actually taking the action and going and opening up a Roth IRA. If you don't open up one today, I'll be very upset with you. So just make sure that you do. And let me know, do you guys already have a Roth IRA, and what do you guys invest in? Do you guys put it into individual equities, or do you guys put it into ETFs? Let me know. I'm so curious as to what you guys are holding. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.